Hi, so as I'm sure you're aware, this is a pretty small channel, but some of my old not old, but like some of my videos still do get comments because they seem to trickle through the algorithm and people comment on them. Mostly people who don't totally agree with me. Sometimes I'll get sort of hardcore purist Marxists who don't think I'm doing communism right. Fine. Most of them, though, are people who are on the communism bad side of things. And, I can understand that. We all succumb to propaganda, even if it's just a hangover from the Cold War. But anyway, a particular user who goes by the name God Almighty, who I have to admit, that's exactly what went through my head when I saw how many comments this person left, commented a lot on my video, Could a Society Function Without Money? And this video in question has probably more of the comments that have trickled through after the video's kind of first gone up compared to a lot of other videos I've had up. So, this is not the best setup. I'm kind of doing this ad hoc. Now, I didn't really want to respond to this person in the comments. I left one comment just saying, hey, thanks for all the comments. It helps with the algorithm. I thought that making them realize that they weren't doing anything might stem the flow a little bit, but it didn't. They left more comments after I said that. I haven't actually read very many of their comments, just enough to be like, this person is like, so Soviet Russia failed, therefore communism doesn't work and anyone who believes in it is stupid. Which means that they have not done their homework. And this video is not going to be in any way productive. This is not going to be even a little bit productive. I am purely here to blow off steam, by the way. And also, this person did, the last comment, I was going to make this video anyway, but this person did say, I see you have no retort. I guess you succeed. The victory to me. I'm like, no, I don't have time for this. No, I take it back. I absolutely have time for this. I have a toddler. I don't need to deal with toddlers on the internet, okay? But we're going to do it. We're here. We're just going to have a fun time, you and me. Not you if you're watching this, God Almighty, if that is your real name. But no, those of you who know better, we're just gonna chill out here. I'm gonna try and keep this fairly chill, at least, because that's the kind of content I've been enjoying now, is just feeling like I'm hanging out with someone for a bit. So there's gonna be probably unedited, aside from me chucking the comments up as I would go through them. But yeah, I'm gonna go. I haven't read any of these before shooting, by the way, so I am going in cold here. I've glanced at them, obviously, because I've got them up here on my screen. But yeah, let's see what God Almighty's got to say about my content. So, first one. Your vision of society is one of violent chaos and suffering. No, it's not. You have not considered fully the implications of your proposal of getting rid of money as a hypothetical. Okay, so firstly, me suggesting getting rid of money was not an actual policy proposal. That was not, we need to lobby the government and get them to ban money, because that's obviously going to... No, I was just saying, I was trying to get people to imagine that maybe other ways of running society might be possible. Anyway, you ignore human psychology and behavior. I'm literally studying psychology right now, bucko. My wife, who I've been married to for almost 10 years, and that point's going to come up later, completed an undergrad of psychology. I know how psychology... what do you mean I'm ignoring human psychology? Humans need to be part of a community in order to maximize their well-being. If we were designing a society from scratch to make everyone miserable, it would be capitalism as we know it. It would be neoliberalism. Let's have everyone work individually and purely just for the extraction of capital, and you never get to meet the people who benefit from your work. Anyway, and substitute it with fantastic notions of perfectly flawless telepathic superhumans that do not exist in reality. I don't even remember what I said in the video, but I don't know where that's coming from. Real humans do not function well outside of a stratified hierarchy of authority. That is demonstrably false. That is absolutely false. There is actual evidence to suggest the otherwise, because, so again, I'm going in cold here. I don't have any notes here. But if humans only functioned well under a hierarchy, Like, how do you explain how we got to this point? Like, what was the first hierarchy? Like, the first responders with 9/11 were not organized under a hierarchy. They were like, when I said the first responders, I mean like, well, no, just in a crisis, right? Like, people don't need to organize themselves into like a hierarchy in order to function there. But like, anyway, my point is that like, God Almighty, do you have friends? Do you have friends? Do you know who's in charge of your friendship group? If you don't have friends, that might explain a bit. But like, if you do have friends, like, I have not stratified my friendship groups into an organized hierarchy, right? Like, that's a much more fluid kind of, like, that is more the vibe of like how most of human society functions, right? Like, and when you go out and order a coffee, right? Like, I'm not talking about the making of the coffee, but when you're just ordering a coffee in a cafe, right? What's the hierarchy between you and the barista, right? Are you in charge of the exact way that they make your coffee? Are they in charge of what you order? You're both in charge of different things, and neither of you is above the other. You're working together to make that transaction happen, and then the profit from that gets extracted by someone else, and that's, you know, like, and have you ever been in a job and like the boss or the manager hasn't been around? In my experience, at least, things tend to run a bit smoother when that happens. In fact, the last job I was in, the whole reason why the company was failing was because the boss wouldn't get on board with anything that might actually grow the business, despite the fact that all the people who worked for him wanted to do that. So hierarchy quite often gets in the way. Anyway, you can never equalize the human experience. Yeah. Someone will always have more or less than you, be it property, wealth, intelligence, or beauty. Well, yeah, I know, but there's different metrics, and let's see. Property ownership is not actually like necessary. Like, that's stratified. That's a cultural thing. Wealth, well, that's wealth, intelligence, and beauty. Like, those are all socially constructed, so those are not absolute values. You cannot share equally all of which humanity craves. Well, we haven't really tried, have we? Like, we're not really trying now. Like, we have enough to go around, but it's just not distributed very well. Like, there's more empty houses than homeless people, God almighty. Like, pick a city. You can look it up. In any given city, that's almost certainly the case. You must provide a civil form of exchange or humans will resort to... You're making a lot of claims and not backing any of that up. You're just stating all of this as though it's demonstrably true, and none of it is. You must rank needs and wants based on some criteria. No, you don't. Well, actually, no, sorry, you do. No, you're right. You do need to rank needs and wants based on some criteria, but I think that criteria should be how much any individual person needs or wants them. Like, that's how bartering systems work, and those function well. They're not as, like, efficient from, like, a macroeconomic perspective as, like, a capitalist system, but they function fine. In fact, when mass economic systems break down, we go back to bartering systems, and that's based entirely on subjective valuing of what's being exchanged, right? Like, you know, if I have... And I've actually done this. I had a poetry book, because I had copies of a poetry book that got published under my bed. I'd already broken even on that, and I wasn't interested in trying to profit off of it. A friend of mine shouted me a couple of beers. I gave him a poetry book, and he was like, "Oh, mate, this is worth more than a couple of beers." And I was like, "Well, yeah, but the beers mean more to me than this particular... I've got plenty of copies of my poetry book. Like, I don't care." And so both of us went away with more than what we feel we put in from a subject. Like, yeah, anyway, so that's... Anyway... Whose needs are more important when not all needs can be met? Whoever's need is greater, I would say. And also more needs can be met than what you think. Like, if you presume capitalism, then no, not all needs can be met, because capitalism is not designed to meet needs. It's designed to extract capital. Like, I don't think the needs of billionaires, and by needs I mean desires of billionaires to become richer, should outweigh the needs of people who need to eat. And where that's a problem, getting food. Anyway, someday someone will inevitably go without. Well, yeah, I know, but we could try and minimize that. On whose authority do you make that call? Well, it's not personal. It's like you kind of take a utilitarian approach where you need to and help the largest number possible. without like helping the same people over and over again. Like, just try. Are you even trying? What measure would you use to judge worth? Yeah. This is not about worth. This is about need. Like, we disagree. Anyway, money allows people to place tangible value on things. It does, including nebulous things like time or pleasure. It does. It gives us a means of evaluating worth. Yes, but not in any absolute way. It's still arbitrary. It's subject to sort of these mass economic forces. It's not actually, like, money as a value system is totally separate from actual value. Like, anyway, a metric beyond physical appearance or ability. A reason to feed the man next to you, a reason to ensure he's not just fed, but satisfied complete. What? No, that's not what money does at all, actually. Because, like I was saying before, like, the system that we currently have, like capitalism, separates us from each other. Like, I don't give a shit about the person next to me. I've never met them before. Whereas in a more old school, like, kin-based community group, the person next to me's survival is intrinsic for, like, it's crucial for mine, because if they're not doing so well, so I'm just going to make sure this is still recording. Oh, jeez, we're going for 10 minutes. We're still on comment 1. Yeah, anyway. Blah, blah, blah. Your society would only function to the point of acceptability, would never achieve true... Ooh, excellence. I want to hear what your definition of excellence is. Like, what's your metric for excellence? There is no reason to... Anyway, whatever. Let's go to the next one. I feel like I did too much of... Oh, no, most of these are shorter. Cool. You are so ignorant, it's scary. Well, please enlighten me then. To think you were probably old enough to vote now. I'm very flattered by the probably. Half my age is closer to the voting age in my country. Do your community a favor. Don't stay the hell away from civics. You are dangerously misinformed. I hate to break this to you, but voting is compulsory in the country that I'm from. In a magical far-off land of somewhere that's not in North America, we have compulsory voting here in Australia. I don't get to just not vote. Like, there was one election I didn't vote, and that was due to a wild happenstance, because I was out in, like, a remote Indigenous community at the time, and there'd been, like, a remote voting thing that had come around a week earlier, and I didn't know, and I arrived just after that had left, and so I missed out on voting that year. But yeah, also, like, I keep myself pretty well informed, actually. Yeah, who are you to say how ignorant I am? Like, what am I ignorant of, God Almighty? Anyway, so you can pay a skilled talent with prestige and favor as incentive, evaluating these members to high status, but you can't recognize this as a form of currency. No, I did recognize that as a form of currency. Wow, you just created a baron, the lord of a manor hierarchy of society based on class. You just reinvented medieval guilds. What do you do for your next embarrassment? For my next trick, I don't know, I'll take a nap. You volunteer a couple of weeks to deliver food to the market. On week 3, you decide to stay home. What? Hold on. You volunteer a couple of weeks to deliver food to the market. Okay, yeah. On week 3, you decide to stay home. The market fails to receive any goods that week because you volunteered for the job and everyone is expecting you to do it. When they learn you quit, they get angry. Okay. You're inventing a very specific scenario that is not what I was talking about at all. Because I don't know if you've ever planned anything in your life, but there's such a thing as contingencies, right? Like, you make allowances for people to not show up on the day if something comes up. And if people don't want to show up, then they don't have to volunteer for that particular thing in the first place. You don't force people to do stuff. And so then I know you're going to say, but what incentive does anyone have to do anything? It's like, when you're actually part of a community and you care about whether or not the specific people that you would be serving get food or not, that is a motivation. That's my argument. And I know you're not going to believe that, but it's called intrinsic motivation. It's a thing in psychology, the thing I'm studying, which you don't think I know anything about. But anyway, whatever. Blah, blah, blah. Angry fathers drag you from your house to murder you for putting their families in danger. You try to explain that it was only supposed to be 2 weeks, but they don't care. then you should do it now. Yeah, I know, but there would be a contract. Someone would be organizing this, and you might say that's a hierarchy. It is, but it's a temporary and justified hierarchy. Like, why is this just... The thing about organizing society differently is it would be organized differently. Like, you can't just say, we're going to nothing, and I don't have any ideas, so therefore there are no ideas. Like, come on, could you just try and think about this for a second? Anyway, your desire is not as important for them. You're selfish, should just shut up and do the work because there are many violent, you learn mob rules, you lose. Yeah, you see, you're right, that would be a problem if you didn't put any contingencies in place. You know, like, maybe... just as a hypothetical, maybe there's more people in the community who are able to do a fairly menial task like delivering food to the market, and that there would be a pool of people who would be able to step in and make it happen. And as the pool got smaller and smaller, the stakes would become higher and higher because, of course, no one gets any food, and that's bad. Someone from the pool of willing people would eventually get to a point where they're like, okay, the thing that I was going to do instead is not as important as delivering food. And so it would be fine because it's in everyone's interest to keep everything ticking over. Like, anyway, whatever, cool. If there's no incentives to compel people to act, then nobody will act. Yeah, but I would say that there are incentives in the... You're right, but there are incentives in the system that I'm talking about. It's called intrinsic value, a thing in psychology. If you're in need, people may attend to your need, but nothing more. This is why, if people are connected and care about each other, it works better. We have seen, like, if you look at the way that Antifa protests actually work, you have a bunch of people actually helping out, and they're mostly strangers. If you look at the way that the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone was functioning and why that actually failed, that failed because the cops created a blind spot where drive-by shooters could come past and shoot the park up, and that's why it got shut down. It's because the cops strategized to make the place untenable. It was functioning fine. There were people who were... there were people who were having mental health crises that would have been seen as a problem, and they would have been arrested outside of the CHOP, or the Chaz, or whatever it was, and there were mental health care workers who actually made sure that they were taken care of, and it worked really well by all accounts. But anyway, they will not make sure you are content, only that you are not an immediate... No, but that's my experience of capitalism. Like, no one has ever taken care of me that I haven't had a direct relationship with, and the people who have taken care of me have had no financial incentive to do so. Like, I was depressed. I was severely depressed for a good number of years. I'll make another video about that at some point, and why, like, the specific economic mechanism that put me in the impossible position I was put in. But my wife was not paid to look after me while I was severely depressed for 5, 6, 7 years. She did that because she loved me. My friends were the same. There were no, like, everyone who was paid, like the welfare services that were paid to help me, only exacerbated all of my mental problems. Everything got worse with anyone who was only interacting with me because of money. So that is fundamentally wrong. There is no incentive, and the only incentive for keeping you alive is to avoid the bad feelings I would have knowing you died. Yeah, but that bad feeling is actually a pretty strong motivator. It is a selfish desire to not feel bad that keeps you alive, and to brag about being the one to save you, not my empathy towards your suffering. Now we're talking about the whether or not altruism exists, and that is actually that's a contended topic. There are people who say that it does, there are people who say that it doesn't, and my experience of the literature around altruism is that it really depends on how you define altruism, because altruism is socially constructed, and so we have to decide collectively what we agree that it means, and then we can talk about whether or not it actually exists. Free will is the same. Does consciousness exist, or is it just an illusion? Well, it depends on how you define consciousness, and is it the result of mechanistic biological mechanisms? Does that make it an illusion, or does the fact that we experience it mean that it by definition exists, and therefore subjectivity and consciousness does exist because we experience it phenomenologically? So given that that's where altruism fits, I'm not going to touch that one because, like, that's a valid debate. People are selfish egomaniacs, in part, but not essentially. People do stuff that's not directly in their own self-interest either. You could argue that in a roundabout way, it's all to shore up access to resources or whatever, but like that's not what people mean when they say that people are selfish. And yeah, anyway, your faith in their charity is fatally misplaced. Well, you can laugh when I die. I disagree. Okay, big works projects which require incentivizing a population to complete the project. Yeah, exactly. You go out there and you say, hey, wouldn't it be great if we did this project? Wouldn't our community be better if the project was done? The project is the incentive. Like, having the project done and having that be a good thing is the incentive. If people don't want it, it won't get done. That's democracy. I'm proposing a more democratic... You can't just have the richest person in town say, hey, I want this thing, and then they pay everyone and it gets done. No, everyone... Like, what if... what do you say? What if that is impossible? Then the project doesn't get done? Then you need to make it a better project so people want to do it. What if the community does not have the manpower required to accomplish the task? Then you talk to other communities, or you look at getting them if it's important enough. Like, you do what you can in the situation you're in. What if everyone is far too old or far too... What kind of a community is only going to be made up of old or disabled people? You're going to have a range of abilities. You're going to have a range of ages. Like, this is not just like a nursing... Like, it's not like a nursing home where it's just we put all the people in one ghetto together and now they have to figure it out. It's like, no. This is why diversity is important. This is why there is no one single method for making the world a better place. We've all got our parts to play. You just got to do your bit. But anyway, like, that's a stupid hypothetical, and I will not engage with it. What if like the skills or equipment? Well, then you find people with the skills and equipment. And if you can't, then you look further afield, or you make do with what you have. It's called being resourceful. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Come on. I thought you were into that. What incentives could be offered and to whom? No. Just intrinsic value. Intrinsic value exists. It's a thing. You don't understand psychology. Anyway. Project doesn't benefit the neighboring community, so inherent need is not present to them. No, but here's what it does do for the neighboring community, though, is it establishes a relationship between the two communities, so that then when the neighboring community needs something, the first community can help out. It's like you got your individuals are within a community, and then the communities are in a greater community within each other, and it's networks upon networks upon networks. It's like... If you look at the way that like island nations have functioned for ages, it's like it's not like, oh, the other islands won't help them out ever. It's like, no, they actually put a lot of work into maintaining the trade relationships, and there's all this kind of like ceremony and stuff that is really trivial and simple, but like it's there purely as an act of goodwill to make sure that everyone is still happy to trade with each other. It's like that. It's in anthropology all over the place. Human societies have functioned like this for so much of history. Do your homework. What if taking them from their own community to help neighbors results in a major loss of production for their own community? Well, you don't kidnap skilled workers from neighboring communities. You ask them. You negotiate. There's basic economics. It's it just doesn't have to be money. Like, there just has to be some incentive. I'm just saying that, it shouldn't be a monetary incentive, because this whole monetary incentive thing has really fallen apart. Anyway, how would they be compensated? Well, I've explained that already. The only motivation after financial compensation is violence. You have no imagination. It is the only currency that can never be abolished. I would like to hear the full essay on that. I want to hear exactly why you think that. That's a big claim to make with absolutely nothing to back it up. It is also the only reward that can be assured. Without money, it only makes right. No, it doesn't. Again, if you look at how different societies have actually functioned throughout human history, it's demonstrably not the case. Okay, I'm getting tired. I was tired when I started this. Why am I doing this? No, good vibes only. Are you having fun? We're 25 minutes in. I hope this is fun. Do you know what restless people who are bored like to do? They like to bully. I feel like this is a bit of an own goal on the part of our old friend God Almighty here. Are you speaking from personal experience? Is that what you're doing? Is that why you left all these comments? Is this just because you were bored? Like, I've been bored, and I don't go find people to bully when I'm bored. Like, that's not my experience. You know what I do when I'm bored? I either make stuff or I watch YouTube videos when I'm bored. I do this when I'm bored. And I got ADHD. I'm bored all the time. Like, no, that's not what bored people do. Traumatized people bully people. Some traumatized. Again, I'm also traumatized, but like, people who experience trauma and then don't process it, they tend to project it onto other people. And it's, again, psychology. You don't understand psychology, God Almighty. Like, that's not how this works. Anyway. They enjoy bragging and gossip. I mean, yeah, that's part of humanity. That's ego. That's part of the human thing. They are fond of mobs and mob rule. Some are. I mean, that certainly explains a lot of right-wing groups, but not everyone. I don't like mobs. I don't like mob rule. I like communities. I like community autonomy. That's more my vibe. The difference is subtle, but it's there. They like to flex their muscles and show off their power. Well, I mean, I'm kind of doing that now, to be honest. I'm like showing you really how not bothered I am by this. But like, I've gotten so many comments like this before. I just need to get all this off my chest, really. Anyway, what do we got next? Money is the universal equalizer. No, it's not. It's really not. It's, if you want to know what's maintaining the most stark and seemingly immovable hierarchies right now, it's money. It's not equalizing anything. It brings tyrants down to earth and elevates the meekest to grand heights. Without money, hierarchy will not disappear. It will be formed around the next metric might. That is an assertion that you have not backed up with anything for a start. And I would say that, yes, if you create a power vacuum when you overthrow the bourgeoisie and the people who have their power through money, then there will be a fascist uprising. I think that that's pretty fair, but I don't think that, like, that's only if you don't do the work at dismantling hierarchy. Like, and when you say might, like, I assume you're talking like just brute force, like, which, again, yeah, but we're trying to get away from that, you know? Like, just saying, like, this is inevitable, like, that's just caving into a worst case scenario. I would rather stay out of hell if I can. What incentives would people have to look after you? I don't even care about this one. This is like, you offer no service. Okay, actually, no, I am going to respond to this one. One of the best things that anyone said to me was, I was talking with someone in my family about what our most controversial opinions was. And they had just the best possible answer, and I'm so annoyed I didn't think of it myself, but I have adopted this. So my most controversial opinion right now is that human has inherent value. That's it. Like, you have, like, ultimately everything boils down to one thing that you believe has value and you won't be moved on it. Like, otherwise you can't start building logic off the top of that. Everyone starts with, what is it? Premises. Yeah, everyone's got presumptions and premises, and mine is that ultimately human well-being and humans themselves are what we should be serving. If someone doesn't want to do stuff, then you find out why. People are lazy. No, they're not. I'm not doing this. If everyone had $120 billion, a loaf of bread would cost $121 billion. Your ignorance of economics is failing you. Yes, because that is why, as we all know, a loaf of bread costs $1,000 more than the average, the net worth of the average person. That's, yes. Well done. Well done. If everyone had $120 billion, a loaf of bread would cost $121 billion. Oh, wow. Yes, because a loaf of bread is always more expensive than everyone's net worth. Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, I apologize for ever taking you seriously now that you've said that. I didn't take you seriously, by the way. What this is I wanted to humor you because you represent someone who's been commenting periodically on my videos for a while. So, again, this is not supposed to be. But, I want to get that framed. That is golden. If everyone had $120 billion, a loaf of bread would cost $121 billion. Wow. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard, especially given that you then say that I'm ignorant of economics, because that does not... That's... Oh, wow. Just wow. You couldn't even buy bread if we all had the same amount of money because the bread would cost more money than anyone had. Wow. It's not like someone would have paid someone else to make that bread with a portion of their money, and then that person has a little less money. The person who got paid to do the work then has a little bit more. They then sell the bread, and then like the cost of having made it goes back into the thing, and then any extra of that then would get divided amongst the people who work together to make the bread. Whatever. The greed and lust for power in your presentation is powerful. Ooh. Your selfish desire for lordship is readily apparent. You know what projection is? You do not care about the welfare of your fellow man. What's tipping you off? What is giving you that impression? Why don't you think I care about anyone? You crave dominance over him, yet you lack the strength. You will accomplish such a lofty goal. You would rather whine and complain about how unfair it is that you have to compete with others for status and influence. You feel entitled to rewards you have no intention of earning. What makes you any different than the homeless drunkard begging for change on the street corner? I like that line. All things aside, I think God Almighty and I can agree that question, what makes you any different than the homeless drunkard begging for change on the street corner, is a very good question. But my take on that is that all of us are human beings with inherent value, and no one should be forced into a situation where the only means they have to cope is by falling into addiction, and no one should be without the basic necessities in order to... no one should be without the basic necessities is what I mean. No one should have to beg. We should have our basic needs met. That's what I take from that question. But what God Almighty here is suggesting is that the person made bad choices and in every single way deserves to be without the basic necessities such as shelter and food and, money in a society that requires money. And that therefore, and that by saying that I'm no different from them means that I'm bad. No, I know I'm no different from them. Neither are you. Neither is Jeff Bezos. We're all flesh and blood human beings, right? It's just, and all of us, I would say, are trying to do the best with what we got. It's just Jeff Bezos has a lot more than either me or the homeless person that you're talking about. Do you know why homeless, how people become homeless? Have you looked into any statistics about homelessness, ever in your life? Because I promise you that, it's a little more complex than you're giving it credit for. You print enough money that everyone is on par with the wealth of Jeff Bezos, then the wealth of Jeff Bezos would be worth nothing. Yes, that's the idea. That's the whole point. And everyone would be holding billions of worthless dollars. Yes, that's the whole point. Wealth is a measure of relative access. Those with more are wealthier than those with less. Are wealthy than those with less. But obviously, they mean wealthier. If everyone has equal access, no one has wealth. Yes, you get it. That was the whole point. It was, what if we flatten the whole thing and start from zero? And if Jeff is worried, then he can just put that really amazing work ethic that he's got into action and just make all his money right back. I'm sure he will. More importantly, if everyone has equal access, then no one has unfettered access. Yeah. Access will be meted according to desire, and desire is never equitable. Yeah, exactly, because otherwise everyone would have everything, and that's not, I don't want access to... I don't want access to golf. I don't need to play golf. I'll hang out with the other amateur musicians and the writers and stuff. I'll take that access. I'll take access to academic spaces, sure, but I don't really care about golf. I don't care about ice hockey. I don't need access to ice hockey. I don't need access to all sorts of things, really. Mostly sport. Sport's fine. I do like sport, to be totally fair. I think sport is quite often derided by a lot of people who are in similar circles to me, but it's just not my bag quite so much. I like casual sport, but not so much the professional stuff. But it's fine. Anyway, yeah, cool. So far we're good. We exist in a universe of limitations. There are finite resources available. Yeah, there are, but we make more stuff than we need. Not everyone can be satisfied. They can look into the stats. Not everyone should be. Ooh, not everyone should be. I want you to unpack that. I want you to justify exactly why some people shouldn't be satisfied. Not everyone can have their needs met. Not everyone should be. I want you to unpack that. Name some names. Is it you? I mean, obviously it's me. Obviously you don't think I should. But like, what about you? Why? I want to know who. Why? Happiness is not guaranteed in life. No, it's absolutely not. In fact, like happiness is fetishized. Happiness is a very complicated thing, but yeah, obviously. Want will always exist, and you cannot satiate all wants. No, you're right, but I'm not talking about wants, I'm talking about needs. So long as desire exists, money will be a required aspect of civilized society. Well, yeah, but the problem is, though, is that, like, bartering systems exist in societies where there's been some economic collapse. Like, what do you mean by civilized? What do you mean by civilized? Like, I kind of feel like I can't say anything there because your definition of a civilized society is one that necessitates money, right? If we had no money, desires would be fulfilled through violence as they were in the past. Well, they weren't, though. Like, the human race has gotten further by working together than competing with each other. And we have competed with each other, and that has gotten some groups more things that way. Like colonialism, it got the British Empire a lot of stuff. But people working together is how communities started in the first place. And all my argument was with could a society function without money is can we imagine a society that doesn't inherently make people miserable? Anyway, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Without money, there is violence. Again, I think money is meaningless if you've never lived without it. You have no idea. I am so poor. Money means peace. Well, it means a type of social security, but we could create a society where it wasn't necessary. In fact, replace the word money with the word peace and you would begin to understand how it works. Is that how I've been thinking about economics wrong? So can I order coffee just by saying peace be with you? Like if I bring peace to my barista, do I get coffee? Anyway, money is a civil medium of peaceful exchange. Well, depends on how you define violence. Slavoj Žižek would probably disagree with you there. That is its purpose and function. Well, that's the thing about money, right? Is that money was a token of value. It started out as like an actual bit of gold, and you used to be able to it got to a point where you would be able to hand you'd be able to hand your gold in, right? Well, the money that you had, you would have a certain amount of gold or precious metal of some description, and that would be worth, the value of that metal was the value of the coin. So you would have $1 worth of metal, and that would be a $1 coin, for example. Then you had the money changers come in, and that's not coded, by the way. Anyone who thinks that I mean the Jews by that, that's not what I mean. I mean people who ran banks. No. None of that anti-Semitic stuff, because no, that's not what I mean. But anyway, you got the early banks. They would hang on to your money if you had more of it than you could carry around, and they'd look after it and stuff. Eventually they would start giving little IOUs so they don't have to physically give you the money, and then eventually it got to a point where that became completely divorced from that, and they started handing out more notes of value than they actually had in gold coins. And then since we've gotten rid of the gold standard, money is now just this totally abstracted concept. It's not just a means of peaceful exchange. Money is a manipulated commodity. It is bastardized value, and it is used purely as a tool of power and the exacting of power over another human being, according to some people like Slavoj Žižek and myself and probably quite a few other people. That is a form of violence. That is violence. So I would say no, it's not. It's actually just a new form of violence. Provides a means of fair and equitable trade between two parties that may not share mutual interests. Well, the thing is, if you don't share mutual values, if you value the commodities that play differently, then it actually screws someone over and not someone else, the way that you get around in bartering. But bartering, again, is slower. Blah, blah, blah. You produce no tangible products that people need. Whatever. You speak of bank loans. The bank owns the money being lent. They do not. Okay, the money does not exist and will never exist until it is first loaned and then paid back. Only then is it real. Yeah, that's the thing I was saying before. It's that, like, there's just money that gets invented. Yeah. What the bank is allowed to loan is not actually money, it's risk. Risk that the bank will get caught for giving out money that they don't do. That's what banks do. Yeah, banks are corrupt. They manage risk. Yeah, the risk of people figuring out... Like, this is the thing. Like, if we just all agree that... Like, if people stop buying houses, at least in my country, then the price of houses go down because they're not valued as much, and then the entire economy collapses because banks are relying on houses to prop themselves up, basically. Like, that's what happened in 2008. That was the 2008 financial crash. It was just the price of houses all came crashing down, and everything was, like, based on the fact that the value of houses would always go up. Anyway, whatever. You explained the point I just made. Ignorant children spewing ignorant opinions. I feel like that is an excellent one to finish on, because after that there was just a bit of back and forth. Oh no, we're not going to finish on that. We're going to finish on the one I actually replied to. Okay, you go first. Burn all of your money, give away all your possessions, move into the woods naked, and build that utopia. Go on. I want to see this. I want to see you actually try, so you learn how dumb this is. All right. I accept on one condition: that you and me are both naked in the woods, and you have to try and create a capitalist system from scratch, and we will see who does better. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find some friends, and I'm going to build an equitable community with them. Because being alone in the woods, you can't build a society with one person. And if we have people around us, trying to exploit them immediately is not going to go so well for you. So if you want to make me start from scratch, you've got to start from scratch as well. You can't just say the status quo is the 0 point, because that's not how this works. So anyway, I don't really feel better after that. This has been almost 45 minutes. I hope that this has been an experience for whoever has been watching. God Almighty, if you're there, please expand on those points that I wanted you to expand on, and I will not respond to anything that you say from here on out. I have given you too much of my time already. And until next time, to all of you, including you, God Almighty, much love. And I do mean that. It's the only thing that keeps the world going.